All right, hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Chase Thomas Podcast, where I'm still the aforementioned Chase Thomas, coming to you live from Knoxville, Tennessee, Everything School HQ, down there in Tequila, Georgia, celebrating a back-to-back national championship season. The undefeated Georgia Bulldogs, who clinched a national title late last night, right after midnight struck on a new year. Matt Green, how are you, sir?
Not so fast, my friend. Georgia fans are feeling great about this Ohio State win. One of the best college football games I've ever seen in my lifetime. We are not counting our chickens before they hatch, as they say. We'll get to TCU down the line, but still respect them as a team. So definitely haven't won the national championship yet, but what an incredible New Year's Eve. Like, literally, when the clock struck midnight, you've seen that simultaneous video with the ball dropping and right when the kick is missed. It was just it was an incredible New Year's Eve. I'll say it's an all-timer for me. I was watching this game with Jake, my brother Jake, and his wife, and the baby was put to sleep. So we're in the next room, like, just very, very pumped, but like controlled celebrations all throughout the game. So some huge momentum changing plays where you had to kind of hit a silent fist bump, and it was good stuff. Kept our composure, but yeah, once the game was over, we had to hit the basement. We had to get rowdy and pop champagne and all that. So yeah, it was good stuff. I don't want to take credit completely for the win, but I did my part as a fan. So we got some last year. I got a bowl of oranges, brought over for the playoff party since we were in the Orange Bowl. Seemed a little wasteful. Not everyone ate all the oranges, not the best plan. So this year, instead of a bowl of peaches, they're not even in season. Didn't seem like good peaches. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Went with the peach flavored champagne. So we hit the peach flavored champagne. We thought, let's save the second bottle for if we win this game. Things weren't looking good in third, fourth quarter, so we had to bust out the second bottle, just start drinking straight from the bottle in the fourth quarter. And I think that turned the tide for Georgia in the fourth quarter. So I'm not going to take all the credit, but I think we did our part in our little section of Dog Nation.
Be honest, did you watch the kick, or did you turn around, or did you close your eyes?
Oh, absolutely. I definitely watched it, because we were going to celebrate the ball dropping too. So just the second he missed it, I just made a beeline for the champagne, picked Tori up. We headed downstairs. It was pumped, man. It was good stuff.
Hold on, were you carrying Tori downstairs?
No, I didn't carry her all the way.
I was going to say, this sounds like a hazard. That sounds like a tough thing to do.
Don't underestimate my upper body strength, sir.
Yeah, there's no way I'm doing that with my wife. Absolutely not, Samantha. There's zero chance for any future Tennessee victory, Samantha. I'm not doing anything of the sort.
But also, you asked me about my uniform, and the bread man rocked the shirt for game day. I thought I needed to rock it again for the pod. So
too much red for my taste.
Oh yeah! Shout out to Jalen Carter, Barstool. He got a little NIL money for this, so I did my part for Jalen Carter's pockets as well.
Well, it's good, because you did some stuff for his pockets, and he lost stuff for his pockets. Just pulling the Donovan McNabb in the biggest game of his career. Just tired and gassed and not chasing down CJ Stroud, who had no interest in running all year long. 50-something snaps, I think, for him total. When I looked it up, he did like 40-something last month against LSU, but I don't know. It was one of those where I jotted my own notes. I'm like, oh, if the Falcons, and they won today, so it looks like they will not be in the Jalen Carter or Will Anderson sweepstakes, because everything's very close down to the final week here. But no, the Jalen Carter, where I'm like, this man's going to play like 20, 30 snaps a game in every NFL game. He's just, you can't go
Jalen Carter will be fine.
He doesn't have the Aaron Donald motor for an interior.
Well, he's not the greatest defensive tackle in the history of the NFL. That's not really a criticism. Like, Jalen Carter will be fine. He'll be a top 5 pick. He'll be a top 5 pick, but if anyone lost money on Saturday, it was probably Keely Ringo, Marvin Harrison Jr. Although, I mean, not being able to guard Marvin Harrison Jr. it doesn't mean you're not a good player. I mean, he's probably going to be the number 1 receiver taken in next, not 2023 draft, but in the 2024 draft. So, I mean, he's a baller. So, I mean, I think he's a true sophomore, right?
Yeah, he has to come back for another year.
Yeah. So, I mean, you could still be a first rounder and just not be as good as Marvin Harrison Jr. because he's probably going to be making some NFL defensive backs look bad for the foreseeable future. But yeah, I thought. I mean, how do you want to get into it? How do you want to do this thing?
Well, I have a lot of questions for you to pick your brain because the Thomas family group chat was bumping all night long, and it exhausts me. I can't, they're going to listen to this. Let me just say it exhausts me because I get more animated when I'm on because I have my notes. And then when I watch stuff, generally speaking, even if it's Tennessee, I'm pretty low key. I'm a pretty low key, laid back person, and that's just me in general. But when I'm getting animated, I'm just getting frustrated because I can just see the little things, and they're saying things, and I'm like, my brother, who's a diehard Georgia fan, was getting really upset, was really pissed off about how the game was going for Georgia, and I'm like, I mean, 30-0. What are we doing? Are we really getting this mad about the potential number 1 pick in the draft dicing you up? And can you calm down? We've seen this movie before. We've been down this road. Until you actually slay the dragon, let's just see what happens here. And I remember the sinking feeling. Well, there are two for me. And the first one was when Harrison went down, and it was that reminds me of something else that happened last year that may or may not have altered how a game was going, and a certain Georgia secondary not being able to handle a big-time playmaker. And I'm also frustrated because I'm like, man, Tennessee was not able to do any of this against any of these corners and safeties. And we'll get into Malachi Starks, but diving into the numbers of just Malachi Starks was horrific in this game, and you go through the stats there, but he's a true freshman, and this is arguably the best receiving core as a whole collective unit in college football this year. And that's even without Jackson Smith and Jigba. And you think about that too. It's if they had the triumvirate, what is Georgia doing in this situation? Because they're down multiple edge guys. Nolan Smith already out, and then Chambliss gets hurt in this game, and then Williams gets hurt, and it's they're suddenly just out of defensive ends. You're just out. And I don't know, but that and the timeout, which was the greatest timeout call I think I've ever seen in college football history, because it literally changes the game. Kirby does not get that timeout, Georgia loses. There's no question. It's over. You can also argue that Ohio State still should have gone for it. It was still close enough where you're man, you just have to go for the jugular against teams like this, where it's you're not going to get this many chances, and you open the game up for them. And it's just Stetson in the fourth is a totally different animal. And Stetson, who's just the most mentally tough quarterback in the sport, I think, you have to put your team in a position where you do not give him that opportunity to do that. And then one play later, Arian Smith, over the top, defender falls down, he jukes him, and game's just completely flipped. And you look at it and you're you can't do stuff like that. And I thought it was unfortunate because I think Ryan Day did a much better job than Kirby for 3 quarters in this game. And that was just any Kirby game management questions got destroyed with that timeout call and the way he handled the fourth quarter. But I want to start.
Any Kirby game management questions were dumb anyway, because I saw people criticizing them before the half, they left way too much time before the half, and on second down they drop it off, super conservative play to drop it off to Dejon Edwards in the flat, and he drops it. So that's a catch inbounds, he may get 2 or 3 yards, and the clock's running. So yeah, if your guy's going to drop a wide open pass, then it's not according to plan. So at that point, Georgia had the ability to at least take off another 30, 40 seconds with a minute 40 left in the first half. And instead they obviously it was incomplete pass there. And on third down, they complete the pass, I think, to Bowers, and then Ohio State used their last timeout. So it's if they catch that pass, then it's a completely different scenario. Not to mention a more gettable. It's 3rd and 4 at that point, and probably more gettable at that point. So I feel that's just the ultimate hindsight. They were making a conservative move. They obviously were making an effort to stop the clock. And also if you do that and you lose 30, 40 more seconds, Ohio State scored in 50 seconds. So a minute 30 would have been just fine, and they still could have scored. So I think that's the ultimate second guessing type stuff. But in terms of how bad Georgia's secondary looked, you haven't seen this CJ Stroud like ever. Like this has been the biggest criticism of CJ Stroud is that he is an athletic player. You saw at Northwestern game when he rushed for like 80 yards. Like we've seen him look athletic. Like I'm sure he's going to run a respectable 40 for a quarterback, but he just doesn't really scramble and make plays like he did all game. Like he looked like Bryce Young. Like this is my number one criticism of CJ Stroud is that like he's not in the same stratosphere as Bryce Young because he just makes plays. And I can't. I think you just got to tip your cap to CJ Stroud, like because I haven't seen him play like that all year.
Yeah, we'll get more into CJ Stroud. He was phenomenal in just what he was able to do against the rush when Georgia was able to get home. He dodged a lot of sacks, just being really smart in the quick spins and rolling out and throwing off platform. Like CJ Stroud he had the game he needed to even in defeat, and we'll talk more about that in a second. But I want to start from Georgia's perspective, Matt Graham. How did Georgia come back and win this game in the fourth quarter?
It's hard to say. I think they were finally able to get some stops. I think the ultimate, like you said, the key play was that Javon Bullard hit on Marvin Harrison Jr. because they were not able to, which was not targeting, right? Can we agree on that? There's no chance that was targeting. I sent you the text
of the image, so people misconstrue like what that actually means, like what targeting actually is, and both games had some egregious non-targeting calls on both sides. But I will say, no, I think it was targeting because if you look at, I don't have my phone in here. Do you have the message I sent you with the rulebook of like what actually is defined by targeting? Like it's actually in the rulebook of what people think it's just helmet to helmet, intentionally like lowering the crown and hitting someone head on and like trying to knock somebody out. That's not what it was. And then there are people who are like, well, he was leading with his shoulder. And it's like, well, no, we have a screenshot of like the helmet to helmet.
He's definitely leading with his shoulder, though. Like, yes, my question is this, though. What is Javon Bullard supposed to do in that situation to make a play on the receiver?
I think that's the ultimate question. I think you put your hands up.
Put your hands up. Like, what is that? Like, that's not going to prevent the...
No, what I'm saying is he's coming up from behind and he just puts his hands up to try and
I think the reality is CJ Stroud left his receiver out to dry. He put a pop-up into the back of the end zone, and there's a reason that's a dangerous play because the entire secondary is going to converge on you, and you're just a sitting duck. Like there's no... The fact that you don't lead with your helmet, like you're seeing what you're hitting, like that's the whole point of the targeting play, leading with the crown. He definitely didn't lead with the crown. He led with the shoulder, like... The guy's on the ground. Like, how is he not going to hit him in the head or neck area? Like, it's the people that are crying over the targeting. I don't understand that at all. Because I want a legitimate alternative for what the defender should have done. Like, the defender has a right to try to break up a touchdown pass.
Well, what I'm saying is, like, he did, but it's still the result was he knocked him out. Like, he was concussed from the hit.
Because he hit the shit out of him.
Right, and I'm not...
That's football.
But it was still helmet to helmet. Like, there was this idea that...
It was not helmet to helmet. He definitely led with the shoulder.
No. It's not about what led. It's what happened. He may have led that way, but the helmets collided. If you look at this freeze frame, like, it's right there. That's what knocked him out. Like, it wasn't just him falling over.
I mean, he also drilled the ground, and
not
his head drilled the ground when he hit the... I mean, he got rocked. Like, that's what happens in football. You get rocked, you can get a concussion. Like,
well, here's what I found, by the way. And this is Chris Mykrantz on Twitter who posted this. Article 4 from the rulebook. No player shall target and make forcible contact to the head or neck area of a defenseless opponent with the helmet, forearm, hand, fist, elbow, or shoulder. This foul requires that there be at least one indicator of targeting. When in question, it is a foul. So, like, that is what happened there. He is defenseless
I don't think
receiver.
anyone... It's not called that way, though. So it's like for the intents and purposes, like the way targeting is called, like leading with the crown of the helmet and launching into a defenseless player, like that's what you're trying to take out of the game. You can't just prevent a player on the ground from getting hit in the head or the shoulders. Like he's on the ground. Like how is this defender supposed to react? Like you have to give a defender a legitimate alternative for like how he should be trying to defend the offensive player. And like that guy, the fact that he didn't lead with the, like clearly he's making a conscious decision to not lead with the helmet because he kind of turns his body. Like it would have been easier for him to go all out and lead with his helmet and just try to rock the dude. And he actually does make a conscious decision to make what would be a less dangerous play and still try to break up the play. I mean, that's a clutch play. Like that's all the guy can do. And it was probably very difficult for the Peach Bowl to find a Georgia defensive player of the game in this game. And I think because Javon Bullard made that one play, like not only like I'm not like trying to injure anybody, you know, but obviously it was big to knock Marvin Harrison Jr. out of the game. Georgia couldn't guard him, but just how clutch of a moment in the game that was. If he doesn't even get hurt at all, just Georgia had to get a stop in that situation and force a field goal. And that was massive. There was literally, like I've been in the situation as a Georgia fan so many times where it feels like Georgia has to play the perfect game and still the bounces go the other way and Georgia loses, right? Like the 2017 national championship against Alabama, like there's like 5 or 6 plays that you're like, yep, if that play doesn't happen, Alabama doesn't win. If that play doesn't happen, Alabama doesn't win. It's like 5 or 6 things and they all happen in favor of Alabama. It's like that's what happened in this one. Like if not for that breakup by Javon Bullard, for the timeout for Kirby Smart, like that Brock Bowers 4th and 6 he was able to pick up on the sideline, like even the missed field goal at the end of the game, like a 50-yarder to win it. Like it's not a gimme by any means, but kickers can make 50 yards. I think his 52 was like his target zone to get to. So it's a new era for Georgia football fans where, and also can we put to get to bed the narratives just about Georgia of just like, what if they get in a shootout? What if Stetson has to win a game? Like what if this, like what if that, like this is why Georgia's so good now is because they can win games in so many different ways. Like, I think this was the one team in college football that was capable of beating Georgia if Georgia shuts down the run and makes them one-dimensional. Like, this is the only team that could have done it.
I think if Hendon Hooker had this time on a neutral site in the Dome and he had the same amount of time.
No chance, man. Like, Tennessee didn't even almost beat Georgia. Like, it was not even close. Like, the game, they didn't get in the end zone until 5 minutes left in the fourth quarter. Like, this,
you're doing some revisionist history here because they did miss 4 open deep bombs in that game. And
yeah, they missed them. That's part of the game. Guys get open all the time, and guys hit them or miss them. Like,
well, what I'm saying is there's
also 4. How many? I mean, maybe 1 or maybe like 2 the whole game.
No, there were 3 open ones. Brew missed 1. Tillman
but it's like
one.
that's the team. That's who the team is, and they missed those opportunities. Probably because he was under pressure the whole first half, like the whole game, basically.
I am not saying
like
that Tennessee
it all
be favored.
goes in.
What I'm saying is the same kind of scenario where if you give Hendon Hooker time, as we've seen all year long, if Jalen Carter is neutralized with the double teams like he was in this game.
But those are ifs they couldn't do.
Well, no, that's what I'm saying. What happened
Tennessee couldn't do that.
I'm not disagreeing with that. What I am saying is if Tennessee's offensive line played like Ohio State's did in the Dome against Georgia, what I'm saying is they could pull.
But they don't have Ohio State's personnel. They don't have Ohio State's offensive line.
I mean, they were the number one scoring offense in college football this year. They were better than Ohio State on offense for the entire year.
I think it's debatable that they're a better offense than Ohio State. Like,
what is Ohio State better at this year?
Throwing the ball. Like,
no.
Did you watch the Georgia game? Like, they absolutely destroyed Georgia's defense.
They had time.
Just use that one because
clean pockets are important, man.
But it's not like someone went out and just like, okay, we're going to give Ohio State time. Tennessee, they're not going to get any time. Like, that was Ohio State that gave their quarterback time.
True,
like, Tennessee
but he also
couldn't
deep dropbacks,
do that.
And Hendon does the one-step drops, and then Jalen Carter's in the backfield.
It doesn't matter how they accomplish what they accomplished.
Why are you getting so mad about this? All I'm saying is, like, if that scenario where Hendon Hooker has time, like, there's just more opportunities for the Tennessee wide receiver room that is, I think, more talented across the board this year when they were all
than Ohio State? No chance. No chance.
Jalen Hyatt beat Marvin Harrison for the Biletnikoff Award anyway.
And and he shouldn't have. He's not close to as good as Marvin Harrison Jr. What did he do against Georgia?
But that's what I'm saying. But ultimately, like,
I don't even know if did he play against Georgia? I don't even remember Jalen Hyatt on the field against Georgia.
Hurt my feelings? You just
I'm just saying, Jalen Hyatt was balling out because teams forgot he exists. No,
they didn't forget.
He's running wide open 50 yards down the field for half of his touchdowns this year. Marvin Harrison Jr. is going to be a top 10 pick in the NFL draft. Jalen Hyatt's not a first rounder.
Like, he's a first rounder. Absolutely. He's getting great. Look at every mock. He's a first round player.
He's nowhere near the player that Marvin Harrison Jr. is. That's all I'm going to say. And Hendon Hooker is nowhere near the player that CJ Stroud is, especially not the CJ Stroud we saw played on Saturday. CJ Stroud might be the number one pick in the entire NFL draft. Like, that's a whole nother level of elite. And that's why I think Ohio State is the only team that had the Jimmies and the Joes to potentially beat Georgia. I think Alabama did not have the playmakers on the outside to beat someone like Georgia. Like, Michigan was not built to beat Georgia. Like, TCU, who knows? If TCU is able to run the ball, no one's really been able to run the ball consistently on Georgia. So Ohio State just had those elite players, and that's what it's going to take to beat someone that's as loaded as Georgia at this point.
I think it's just also great. You have to dominate them up front, and it's really hard to do. Like, it's just one of those.
Exactly.
They deserve a lot of credit for dominating Georgia up front for as long as they did. They weren't even able to really run on Georgia. It was more of scrambles and CJ Stroud using his legs. Like, I thought it was over when CJ had the big run to get them in field goal range to begin with, where it was wide open. I was like, oh, that's it. Like, he did it. Like, Georgia was not accounting for this thing that CJ Stroud has not done all year long. And you're like, man, what are you going to do?
Because that's why I started to say the run game was the key in this game, but I stopped myself because I was like, I think Ohio State is the one team that they might be good enough passing that Georgia can take away the running game and they still have a chance to win. And I mean, you look at what they did on the ground, just the running backs had 18 for 79 in this game. Like 4 yards a carry. Like, it was fine. Like, they didn't really make many plays, but the fact that CJ Stroud was actually able to get 30 something yards and just scramble, and more than anything, scramble around and find people. Like, that was two of their the one that put them up 21-7. I was like, who is this? Like, this is what we've kind of waited CJ Stroud to be. It's kind of what I mean, he was my preseason Heisman prediction. That's kind of what I thought he was going to be coming into this year. And he was just balling. Like, I think he may have made himself the number one pick just from this performance tonight.
Bryce Young's pretty good too.
He is, but he's got the prototype size that the NFL wants. And if he's making these Bryce Young type plays, like, that was literally the only criticism of him. Like, what is he? 5 inches taller and 30 pounds, 40 pounds heavier than Bryce Young. So,
I mean, if Bryce Young is 4 inches taller, it's not even a question who the number one pick is. I also think it's kind of amazing. Like, sports is so cruel where it's like Bryce who was the last Alabama quarterback to not win a title at any point during their time at Alabama? And he's the first one. It's like the best Alabama quarterback they've ever had.
And I think he's probably the best, yeah.
And
it's interesting, too. It's like, who won a national championship, Tua or Jalen Hurts? It's like a weird, like, career legacy thing, because Tua had 2 years starting and they didn't win the national championship either. And so it's like, he's a national champion quarterback. Like,
but he won.
Jalen Hurts is the national champion quarterback. He was the starter on a national championship team, but they don't win the national championship without Tua coming in. So it's a weird kind of legacy thing because they kind of split one. But it's.
Well, speaking of legacy, I want to ask this question for you. Is Stetson now unanimously the greatest quarterback in Georgia history? Like, it's done, right?
I mean, most accomplished, like, yeah. Like, I have a hard time overreacting to the team accomplishments. You know, it's like you put Aaron Murray on a team that's given up 11 points a game for 2 years. Like, I feel like he might win a national championship or two. You put Matthew Stafford on a team, but for what he actually has accomplished, like, I mean, you can't take it away from it. Like, the playing big and the big moments. Like, you saw the stat come up with what he's done in the fourth quarter of playoff games. It's like 15 of 17, like 5 touchdowns, no picks. Like, most outstanding player of the Orange Bowl, most outstanding player of the national championship, SEC championship, now the Peach Bowl. Like, the accolades go on, and I wish we would start giving him the respect he deserves. It's like JJ McCarthy was a 5-star out of high school, so he's just talked about as some guy that has way more upside than Stetson for some reason. It's like once Georgia offered him a scholarship after he left community college, it's like the entire narrative about him should have changed. It's like, okay, well, he's someone that University of Georgia thinks is worthy of a scholarship for the last like 4 years now. It's like he's probably better than some 2-star recruit. So, and if you saw this game, like he's making elite throws. Like that last drive with the throw to Bowers, the sidearm like through a super tight window, and then the throw to Kieris Jackson right after that, and even the throw to A.D. Mitchell before he made the break to take the lead at the end. Like he's a good, like I feel like his arm strength gets totally overblown. Like how many times does a quarterback need to throw the ball 70 yards? Like Jamarcus Russell could throw the ball 75 yards from a knee. Like that's cool.
We're about to find out with Joe Milton full season next year.
And Joe Milton is sexy, you know. He's got fucking flicks the wrist and it goes 60 yards. So he's got higher upside. He's got the higher upside than Stetson for sure, but you don't have to throw the ball 60 yards all the time, and he's perfectly accurate on deep balls. So he balled out. There's nothing you can say really in the fourth quarter. He struggled at times early on in this one, but I mean, you just look at the numbers. Like if CJ Stroud just solidified being the number one pick with this performance, like literally the same completion numbers. Both of them were 23 of 34. Stetson threw for 398, 4 total touchdowns and a pick. Like this guy, he's an NFL player. Like I don't know where he gets drafted, but this guy's got to get drafted. You can't win 2 national championships and be the most outstanding player in all the playoff games and not be worthy of a draft pick. Like someone's going to take a chance on this guy.
Yeah, I think he gets drafted. I just don't. He's not a franchise guy. Like he's probably someone you want to plug. Like he'd be a fun plug and play type, but it's also just like, could he have a better NFL career than Baker Mayfield?
It's like, who thought Taylor Heineke was an NFL quarterback? Like,
I still don't think he's an NFL.
The Commanders are a very bad team, but he runs around, makes some plays. Like he's not the worst quarterback in the league.
Oh, speaking of, I wanted to throw this back out there. Tennessee averaged 0 yards per attempt in college football this year. That was the number 1 yards per attempt. Ohio State was number 2 at 9.5. Highest quarterback rating of anyone in college football this year was Tennessee at 181.4. Ohio State was right behind them at 117. Also more attempts, higher completion percentage, 68 to 66. Yards, 326 to 298. All I'm saying is we're discounting Tennessee without Jalen Carter ruining Hendon Hooker's life. All I was saying there is like,
but Ohio State, they were. I don't know how we got on Tennessee so much, but
you went on Tennessee a little bit too hard there. Because what I'm saying is like Tennessee with that kind of scenario in the dome inside with no pass rush, no Nolan Smith, no Chambliss, like they're going to be able to dice that secondary what we saw up the same way.
With no elements, Georgia's hanging 50 in that Tennessee game.
I mean, yeah, for sure. But that Tennessee might also hang 40 is what I'm saying.
We don't even need to get into it. The way they barely got 13, so I can't subscribe to that. So,
but I mean, what does Ohio State do in Athens? Like this?
Well, it's also and you don't want to overreact to just one game. It's just how both of them did against Georgia. It's a one common opponent they had, but they absolutely, I mean, they diced Georgia up. Like this secondary, like it felt a lot like the 2021 SEC championship where you're just like, we can't even guard them. I'm not really sure what you're supposed to do when you can't guard them. It's like, and I think different than that game, like Georgia got 0 pressure on Bryce Young in that SEC championship last year. Like Georgia actually did get some pressure on Bryce Young. Like they definitely kept him clean a lot, as much as they had to in order to have success against Georgia. But he just deserves a lot of credit for avoiding some of the pressure and still making plays down the field. So it was a big time game. It was 2 really good teams, just heavyweight, throwing haymakers back and forth. It was good stuff, man.
Is that the greatest timeout call in college football history?
I'm gonna have to go ahead and say yes, but I don't really have a list of great timeout calls personally. But also that you saw Ohio State had 12 guys on the field on that fake punt, so I don't know if they were gonna miss that completely. But yeah, that was just massive. And I actually had said to my brother at the time, I was like, this honestly isn't a terrible place to go for it. Like you're up 11, like they haven't really been able to stop you. You get 1 yard, like what that could mean for taking the time off the clock. Like that would have just been massive. But yeah, to get that timeout and get the ball back and also that Arian Smith to make the defender fall down and just have the one play drive, like 8 minutes left, like, you're worried about putting together like a 3-4 minute drive, how much time you'll still have left. You get a stop or whatever, like to just score right that in like 10, 15 seconds. That was when finally, as a Georgia fan, you're like, okay, I think we can actually win this game. Like it was not looking good there for a while.
I also wonder, as I was jotting down like just different notes and thinking about stuff today, I'm terrified for what the playoff is going to look like injury-wise, Matt Green. The bodies that hit the floor in this game and what these teams were reduced to in this semifinal game, Georgia was out of defensive ends. If that's game 1 of the playoff and they're just out of defensive ends, that changes the entire, like you have to go 2-3 more potentially playoff games like that. These guys are going to, like, we're going to have dudes like sit out playoff games in the 12-team playoff because Georgia's going to be like, we're not putting these guys out here.
It's not going to happen, man. You're not going to sit.
Will.
You might sit the starters in the third quarter in the third quarter when you're blasting somebody or something, but no, if there's something on the line, the players are going to want to play. Like
you don't have a choice. You were out of bodies. Who were you putting at defensive end? Stetson, Carson Beck, who was playing defensive end at a certain point last night.
And that's another reason I hate that the injuries are being brought up again with Marvin Harrison Jr. Like, just like Mechie and Jameson Williams, that's what it takes for Georgia to win. The best receivers have to get hurt. It's like Georgia's been playing. They've been playing without their number one receiver basically the entire season for a second straight season.
Hold on, are we comparing Marvin Harrison Jr., John Mechie,
no, we're comparing
Jameson Williams to A.D. Mitchell? Is that what we're doing?
And George Pickens. That's the best Georgia has. It doesn't mean that they're as good as theirs, but it's the best Georgia has. So it's still their best. And
I think the equivalent is like Darnell Washington, who went out, and I think that was under-talked about.
But I'm saying Georgia played the entire season without A.D. Mitchell. They played half the season without Nolan Smith, and then Chaz Chambliss gets hurt. And like you said, Darnell Washington is such a huge part of the passing game and the running game. Like, Georgia's not without their injuries as well. It's like it's a part of football. So I hate when that gets thrown in there as well.
It's just, I hate that some fans, like if Tennessee went down this road, I would say the same thing, where it's like you need two things to win in college football. It's Game of Thrones, different houses, different pots of money, different recruiting advantages, all this, that, and the other. But you need depth more than anything. The two best teams standing here at the end are the two deepest teams. Georgia and Alabama are the two best teams right now. And they're the deepest. And they're playing the deepest, and it matters. That's just the name of the game. Number 2.
You say Georgia and Alabama are the best right now?
Yeah, I think they're the best right now.
TCU's in the national championship,
Bama
bro.
would wax TCU. They just beat the shit out of Kansas State, who beat TCU in the Big 12 title game. What's the opening line for Bama TCU? I think it's 13.5 too.
I forget which property it is. It's not the distributive property, but you know what I'm talking about.
Yes, I know you're talking
That's not relevant. Also, TCU did beat Kansas State early in the season. It doesn't matter.
Green, hold on.
Alabama didn't earn
I'm not saying they did. We're not doing the earn it.
TCU is the second best team in college football.
We all know
maybe
that's not
best.
true. We all know that's not true. They're like the 7th best. What are we
So
doing?
if TCU beats Georgia, they're not the best team in college football?
We don't have to even juggle that.
Well, if TCU wins the national championship, you're still not convinced that they're the best team in college football.
I'll say that.
No,
if they beat Georgia, I will say they're the best team in college football.
But you won't say they're the second best team in college football
Absolutely
currently, right now, today.
No. There's a reason they started out as 13.5-point dogs, which is the biggest in college football title.
Will you say they're at worst the third best team in college football?
No, I think Ohio State's better.
See, I'm saying Ohio State is the one I'll give you.
Bama's better,
because
and
Ohio
Georgia's
State,
better.
you can say because Georgia and Ohio State played each other, so maybe you think Ohio State's better.
Yes.
But you can't put anyone else ahead of TCU. They're in the national championship.
I think Tennessee would be favored against TCU on a neutral site. Fully healthy.
Well, that says a lot about Vegas.
It does. And look, and I don't want to pick on TCU fans. They did everything they were supposed to do. But this is not a blue chip littered roster. They beat up on a Michigan team.
But that's why we should throw these blue chip ratio out the window.
No, because you're still going to run into the
Auburn and Florida are in the blue chip ratio. Miami was in the blue chip ratio.
Right.
It's like those weren't good teams at all. So
no, it's just saying you can't
the blue
win
chip
the
ratio is
that
clearly
way.
flawed.
Well, no, you can't win. No one's ever won the title this way. That's what I'm saying. If TCU wins, then I'll reevaluate.
But it's such a caveat. Like, they're in the playoff and they won a playoff game.
Yeah.
The fact that they won a playoff game, like, that's rarefied air. Oklahoma hasn't won a playoff game. Ohio State's won, what, 2?
Yeah.
3 playoff games? They won 2, obviously, the year they won the national championship. Like, you're talking about, like, a handful of teams that have even won a playoff. Like, Michigan State didn't win a playoff game. Cincinnati didn't win. Like,
Washington,
like that. There's some one. Notre Dame's been in a couple of times, hasn't won one. Like, you got to give TCU their respect, man.
I am not saying that they're not a good team. All I'm saying is, like, we all know Bama and Georgia are better football teams than them.
But how long do high school recruiting rankings matter? Because that's all the blue chip ratio is. Like, clearly, Max Duggan, whatever he was thought to be coming out of high school, was wrong. You know, it's like it was not correct. He was clearly a better player than that. Like, same with Stetson Bennett. Like,
they've gotten better.
The blue chip ratio is counting Brenton Cox as a better player than Max Duggan. So, like, how much can we trust this formula?
Well, I mean, Joe Burrow, Mac Jones.
It's probably counting every player on Florida's roster as a player. Not to single out Florida, but, like, Auburn, a team that's in the blue chip ratio. Like, I've watched TCU play. They have a lot better players than Florida.
But coaching is also a big part of this. TCU has just a great coaching situation. Garrett Riley, Sonny Dykes. It's just a great unit. Gillespie, like, they're a physical team. They're a good team. I think I'll say they're one of the 5 best teams in college football this year. I just don't think that they would be favored on a neutral site against Bama, Georgia, Tennessee, Ohio State, and that's probably it. I would say that's probably it.
No, Vegas wise, you're probably dead on. But no. It's interesting how hesitant we all are to just give TCU their credit, man. They're what they're doing. It's like they've been doing it all year. Like, it's
they
not
can't play
fluky.
a normal
I feel
football
like
game. They can't play a normal football game. They just don't blow anybody out, and I think I don't know. We'll get into TCU Michigan more in a second. I have a question for you though, as a Georgia fan who's watched every Georgia game this year and seen what the secondary's done all year. Were you surprised, and what did you actually see that made Georgia's secondary struggle as much as they did against Ohio State's receivers? What actually happened there? Why was Keely Ringo getting cooked that way? Why did Malachi Stark struggle? What did you see watching the game where you're like, uh-oh, this is a problem?
Once CJ Stroud had time to throw early in the game, that's when – and then when he didn't, he was actually eluding the rush – that's when you're like, well, I don't think there's any way we can stop them. I think it's just the dudes. I think Ohio State just has elite wide receivers. Like, without Jackson Smith and Jigba, it's just like Georgia just couldn't guard them. So Marvin Harrison Jr. and one of the stops Georgia actually got in the first half, Marvin Harrison Jr. dropped that just like 5-yard pass wide open right across the middle. Like, that was one of, I think, Stroud's like 3 incompletions the whole first half. So it was just I think it was just they couldn't guard the dude. Like, Julian Fleming, their number 3 receiver, was number 1 receiver in the country coming out of high school. Like, Emeka Ibuka, like, we just didn't really have an answer for any of their receivers. And I think Stroud just made plays. He had way too much time, and Georgia couldn't slow him down really until they were. I mean, there was a time they started to get stops. Like, they did get some pressure. They got some stops there in the second half, enough to at least to make the comeback like they did. But Georgia's red zone defense has been good all year too. That's part of it, holding them to a couple field goals.
Did the Buckeyes craft a blueprint for an SEC team to use to beat Georgia next year?
Absolutely.
Okay.
The blueprint is have a top 10 pick at quarterback and have at least one top 10 pick as a offensive skill player, and maybe even multiple first round picks as skill players. That's how you beat Georgia. Like that, you look at, they've lost 4 games going back their last 4 losses since 2019. LSU had a number 1 overall pick at quarterback and 2 first rounders at wide receiver and a first rounder at running back. 2020 Alabama had a first rounder at quarterback, a first rounder at running back. What do they have, 2 or 3 first rounders at receiver on that team? Even 2020 Florida had Kyle Pitts going in the top 5. And last year with Bryce Young, we're already going to count him as a top 10 pick. And then go Jameson Williams. Like, that's the only teams that have beaten Georgia in the last 4 years. They've had, 11 combined, like, first round skill players. Like, and if you're including CJ Stroud and obviously Marvin Harrison Jr., and Georgia did win this game, but it was obviously they exposed the defense. They had over 450 yards of total offense, but I mean, I think that's the only way to do it. Those are the only teams that have done it are the ones that have just elite players. So yeah, if you're whoever you are out there, go get an elite first round pick at quarterback and elite wide receivers, and then you can beat Georgia.
It's that easy.
Anyone can do it.
Win anyway.
I don't know why it's not even hard. I don't know why college football coaches struggle with this stuff so much.
The most impressive element of this game that you saw from Ohio State was what?
I mean, I think the thing I was most impressed with is definitely CJ Stroud. It's just, I know we've talked about it multiple times already, but he's just he hadn't played like this all year, and so he was just balling on Georgia. Because honestly, defensively, I think it went pretty similar to how I thought. Georgia having the ball offensively, Ohio State was not able to stop Georgia, and Georgia just has so many different ways to beat you. I think that's what made him so dangerous. Darnell Washington got hurt. Brock Bowers didn't do much. I think there's rumors that Brock Bowers may have been sick or something going into this one, but I don't know. Brock Bowers didn't really do much. I think he still had 4 for 50 or 60 yards. He still did something, but you saw Kyrus Jackson with a clutch catch. You saw Arian Smith, who's had I think now 10 career catches, and he's got 4 touchdowns, averaging 40 yards a catch. That's what he does, and he had 2 huge deep balls in this one. He also had one in the Tennessee game for one of his 3 catches this year. But getting A.D. Mitchell healthy, that was so huge. He only had, I think, 3 or 4 catches in this game, but he had a couple early that kind of set the tone, and also the game-winning catch. But so I think Ohio State ultimately just and then especially on the ground, they were just getting gashed the whole game. So the defense I feel was kind of as questionable as I thought it was, but I saw Georgia getting more stops. So I think CJ Stroud is the reason why this game became the shootout that it was, because it's all the talk is about CJ Stroud, because I think he was we haven't really seen this performance. He balled out. But not enough is really made that Georgia had more passing yards. Georgia had more rushing yards in this game. Georgia's offense really wasn't stopped on the ground or through the air. It was just the one turnover, the interception in the first half that kind of Ohio State held serve there, and that's that was my pregame difference maker, if you will, was the turnover battle, and that's. I mean, Ohio State won the turnover battle, and all the games that Georgia's lost the turnover battle this year have been some of their closer ones. So they were able to escape, but I was definitely the most impressed with CJ Stroud.
I like it. Last thing on Georgia, Ohio State, Matt Green. Now that it's happened, we talked about the previews. What did you going in? You were telling Jake. Shout out to Jake. Hey, don't give me a break on the Tennessee tweets for a little bit, Jake Green. We're riding high here. On
Great listener, loyal listener,
Jake Green. What did you get right about this game, and what coming out did you get wrong?
I think what I got right, I guess, was what I kind of just said, was that I felt like Georgia just had so many different ways to expose Ohio State's defense, just on the ground and through the air. But I think what I definitely got wrong was that Jalen Carter was just going to wreak havoc, because I know a lot of people have talked about Ohio State might have the best combo of tackles in the entire country, but their guard play has been a little, suspect at times. And obviously with Jalen Carter being an interior lineman, if there's anything suspect about the interior of your line, Jalen Carter was going to expose it. I will say, one holding call this whole game. I'm not this guy that cries holding calls, and that's not my style. But one holding call this whole game on Ohio State's offensive line, I think that may have been questionable, especially on CJ Stroud's run on the last drive of the game, that 30-yard run he had that put him in field goal range. Jalen Carter got absolutely tackled by the right guard on that play. So I don't know what a hold is, because I see every play. It looks like a hold. So, it's debatable, but they definitely did a good job to neutralize Jalen Carter. And I think I thought Georgia's secondary would at least make some plays. I don't think you would really expect to shut down these Ohio State wide receivers, but I thought maybe, if he has to throw the ball 30, 40 times, that Georgia's going to jump a route, get a pick or something. But I don't know. They were hitting a lot of wide open guys in this game.
Your final thing, Matt Green, on back-to-back national titles for your Georgia Bulldogs. What is your final takeaway here on the come-from-behind win, the 14 points in the fourth quarter? Stetson, who I think was – you've talked so much about CJ. For me, it was just Stetson's resiliency in this one. Just never say die, where, like, you mentioned that a lot of different quarterbacks over the years in Georgia lore could do pretty well with the defense, giving up 11 points a game or whatever it is the last 2 years. But what I'm saying is, like, I think Stafford's the only one who has the downfield. I'm going to come, like, no game is ever out of reach for them. And they're completely different prospects, right? Like, Stafford was going to go number 1 overall. He's the most talented quarterback Georgia's ever had. But I think he's wired the same way as Stet, which I think it catches a lot of people by surprise, because I think Murray and Jake Fromm and a lot of Georgia quarterbacks are wired in that similar, like, Jake Fromm was just aggressively efficient and Aaron Murray was aggressively efficient. And I think Fromm's probably the most efficient Georgia quarterback they've ever had.
I think Fromm was a much more of a game manager than Aaron Murray was.
But I think Stetson's just wired differently. I think that matters, and you've seen it matter in these games where, like, if Carson Beck's in there, I don't know. We'll see next year if Carson Beck's wired the same, but, like, Stetson's just not phased. Like, it doesn't matter how bad it's looking. That kid does not care. And
the biggest difference is sorry to cut you off, is his legs. Is DJ Shockley, like, you can go back to, like, that's really the last quarterback you can go to. Like, I mean, I think if DJ Shockley has 2 years starting with this team in 2021, 2022, probably win 2 national championships. But, like, that's not what happened. It's you got to have to go with, the accomplishments that were there for that particular player, and all those other guys you named. Like, none of those guys made plays with their legs like Stetson Bennett does. And also, like you said, the resiliency, like resilience, I should say, going down 21-7 and coming right back and erasing that 14-point deficit in like 5 minutes, and then going down, was it 38-24 at the end of the third quarter, and erasing that deficit, like having to make 2 14-point comebacks in the college football playoff. Like, that's big time. And I think the experience with quarterback and everything, like, it obviously gets a lot of hype. You don't know how much of it is just, like, kind of overblown after a while, like the senior leadership and all that stuff. But, I think that's why it is, because Georgia's experience in these situations, I think, was just massive. Like, I don't think, like, the fact that when they went down 21-7 in the second quarter, the very first play of the next drive is Dejon Edwards, like a 15-yard run or something. It's like, that just showed, like, Georgia's not panicking. Like, there's so much time left. We continue to do our thing. Like, Georgia's running backs in this game, what was it, 16 carries for 154 yards. Like, should have been like 164. I'm not sure how Kenny McIntosh tripped on that one. Turf Monster got him on that one, or a Buffalo Wild Wings situation.
Well, he turned. I think he tripped over his own footing, because, like, when he does that turn and looks away, looks behind him, he, like, kind of trips over himself. I don't know if that was a turf one. Yeah,
he just tripped, but averaging almost 10 yards a carry on the ground, the running backs. So, like, they were big time. It was exactly what they needed. I couldn't believe that Georgia pulled this game out. I feel like it's one of the few games, I think, in my lifetime, especially a big game, where I would honestly say that Georgia didn't seem like the better team in this game, and they found a way to win it. Like, I think that's where the experience comes in and everything. So Kirby Smart gets a lot of, like, he's a great recruiter, but how good of an in-game coach is he, and all that stuff. And I think we can put all that stuff to bed. Georgia can win games multiple ways. Like, also the Ryan Day hot seat talk, like, let's put that to bed too. Ohio State hasn't broken through under Ryan Day, but that doesn't mean they're not going to. That doesn't mean he's not the right guy for the job. Like, this Ohio State team came to play. Like, they played. That's the other thing, is I don't think Georgia necessarily played well. Like, Stetson wasn't sharp in the first half. So Ohio State seemed like they played just about their perfect game. And obviously, Ohio State contributed to Georgia not playing well at times. But this seemed like Ohio State kind of playing their perfect game, and still Georgia somehow finding a way to pull it out at the end.
Absolutely. Matt Green, TCU, Michigan. This was just an insane day. I was exhausted, and I didn't have a rooting interest in either of these games. And I was emotionally wiped here even just after TCU. And I thought I was going to get a nice normal Georgia beatdown to wrap things up, where I'm like...
That's the other thing. I was surprised that you picked a bigger margin of victory for Georgia than I did. I honestly thought you would have picked Ohio State to beat Georgia.
Matt Green, we have not had... Like, if you go through it, I think we've had 3 games in the semifinals that didn't end in at least 2-score victories by the other team, I think, coming in to this one. So, like, people who wanted to make them close, I'm like, there's no history that says that this is going to happen. Like, by and large, the semifinal has had at least one blowout. And then once Michigan and TCU went down to the wire, and that's what I looked at, I was like, TCU only plays close with everybody. Like, they just can't help themselves. Like, they just bring you down with them, and they're going to be in a slot fest with you, and it's just going to be fun, but it's going to be the cardiac frogs. And I was like, all right, well then,
the pyro toads.
Yeah, and I think the Dogs are just going to blow out Ohio State, and we'll be able to do other stuff at 9:30. And I was like, telling my wife, like, hey, maybe we can get into something else this evening. I don't have to watch football from 4 to midnight. It's like, nope, this is going to be back to back, which is a treat. And
who would want to do anything other than watch football from 4 o'clock to midnight on New Year's Eve? I can't fathom what else you could possibly want to do.
I think it's more of like emotionally driven close football where the stakes are that high. Like, it was just 8 straight hours of just wall-to-wall coverage, man.
You know what we actually did? We recorded, I think it's called Dick Clark's Rockin' New Year's Eve with Ryan Seacrest, the greatest title ever. So we recorded that at home. By the way,
before you keep going, because the first thing I said to my wife, I'm like, why? This is in what other line of work or what? Like, he's not a brand. He's a person.
Yeah, I guess he is. But I don't know.
I hope we're not the only ones who thought that was extremely weird, because I saw the advertisement. I'm like, that's so weird.
Yeah, but that made me laugh. But so we had our celebration at my brother's house after the game, New Year's and all that, and then came home with the Dogs. And then we had to celebrate the ball dropping with the Dogs, you know. So they were none the wiser, you know. Mm-hmm. So had to have the New Year's celebration with the Dogs as well.
There you go. Do they like fireworks, or do they get scared and not like it?
You know, I'm not really sure, because I feel like by the time we got home, I don't feel like there was really any fireworks going. So they did break out of their. We keep them downstairs, and we keep the stairs gated off, and. We have the camera. We have like the camera set up downstairs, so you can kind of see if they've done anything. You can actually intercom like no, stop. Like if you see them doing something, I've done that a couple times. But they actually broke out. They're like afraid of this little plastic gate. I don't know why. They never get close to it. But we saw on the camera that the gate was turned over. I was like, oh, and so they were upstairs and didn't get into anything. So you know. Dogs to start off the new year on the right foot. So Max will chew some shit. So Zeus is good. He's like, he just turned 10. Like Zeus is like, just leave me alone. I'm just chilling. Maddox is he's a wild card. That's for sure.
I like it. Throw Maddox under the bus to start off the new year. Good guy Zeus. He's just here. He's doing rehab, man. He's got that knee, trying to get it 100%. PT once a week.
I've said before that they're like obviously dogs aren't children. But people compare dogs to children, and so like it's not like they're both our children. It's like Maddox is mine and Tori's child, but Zeus is like the grandfather that also lived like a King of Queens situation. Yeah. You know, was Spooner Arthur Spooner?
Yeah, Arthur Spooner. Yeah,
yeah. It feels like more like that situation.
I like it because the age gap. I mean, it's almost a 10-year gap between the two of them.
So 8 years on him.
Yeah, very different. Very different. Do you feel the better team won here in the TCU Michigan game, Matt Green?
Absolutely, sir. I was questioning the Big Ten. We had what was it, like 6 of the top 15 defenses in college football are in the Big Ten. It's like, okay, I know they're playing good defense over there in the Midwest, but something doesn't add up here. It's also because like 8 of the bottom like 30 offenses in the Big Ten in the country are also in the Big Ten. So seeing Michigan's #1 ranked rush defense, like obviously I think Michigan's has a really good defense, but TCU just got an attack that's unlike anything they've seen all year. Like Max, like even what's his name, Penn State, Clifford, like even he had like what 70, 80 yards rushing on Michigan. Like they haven't seen like a team with two running backs this good, and also the quarterback being such a part of the rushing attack. So that was my prediction for this game, was that the team that won the running battle was going to win this game, because like that's Michigan's whole identity. So they had to win it. And so I think like I've been critical of JJ McCarthy. I think they made JJ McCarthy beat him, and he couldn't do it. And the 2 pick sixes, like that was just massive. TCU was just making the plays they needed to make like to win this game.
Yes. And I also think this was like one of those games where I still have no idea what to make of JJ McCarthy. I don't know if you're with me. He's the only quarterback coming back from the playoff. Max Duggan's gone, Stetson Bennett's gone, and CJ Stroud is gone. And a lot of big-time quarterbacks are gone who have been on these teams. Like Hendon Hooker is gone, obviously. Sean Clifford, who you mentioned, is gone. You go through the top 10 of the sport, there's going to be a lot of quarterback turnover. And one area where it's not is JJ McCarthy. And I wrote down, I don't know if that's good or not. I have not decided. Where JJ was obviously doing amazing stuff on the ground with his legs, keeping it in it. Like he had some really bad picks, 2 pick sixes in this one, where it's like you see the best in both of JJ McCarthy, where he can go out and win. He has a never say die mentality. He does the 1-sentence answer in the post game. He's like staring off at TCU celebrating after the game. There's that picture of him taking it all in, like Stephon Diggs did last year.
Are you gonna hate on that?
I
It felt like you were going to hate on that.
I'm going to say my gut tells me he knew the cameras were there. My gut tells me that that's one of those where it's like, man, I think you know what's going on here. I think there may have been other things at play where it's like it was not this organic, I'm just going to pretend like I don't even know that there's a camera behind me taking a picture of me staring off into TCU celebrating. And
hey, maybe that's just what Michigan guys are into, you know, that Blake Corum
Stephon Diggs did it last year against Kansas
Blake
City.
Corum watched Georgia celebrate in the Orange Bowl last year, but I
think it's a bit now. They're all just doing it.
Adding to your point, the top 7 teams in college football, McCarthy's the only one that's going to be coming back next year. Clemson has Klubnik coming back, so like kind of a starter, but that's looking pretty up in the air after the Orange Bowl game. But so yeah, a lot of inexperience with some of the top teams at quarterback coming in next year.
Did the missed targeting call matter to you at the end?
It did not. Okay. I think by definition it may have been, but it's like it felt like, actually me and my brother talked about this on Saturday, because Jake always said he's a terrible basketball ref, because he's like, because we did ref like youth basketball for a little bit at one point, and certain times a guy, like, it's like you may have been fouled, but you just kind of like jumped at the guy, like, I don't want to bail you out with that foul call, you know. It's like you played the wrong way, I'm not bailing you out for that, fucking let's keep going, like no whistle. But that's kind of how I felt. It's like it's 4th and 10, like game's on the line, like they mess up the snap. It's a rugby play. They're throwing it all around, trying to get something, and then the guy's going to the ground, and the player's diving in. So yeah, he hits him kind of in the helmet. It's like it was like a cluster, you know what, of a play, and it's like I just don't want to bail them out for that. They shouldn't get first down at like the 45-yard line, like with a chance to win the game after just like a shit show of a play. Like, I don't know. Like, I felt like that might not be how you're supposed to referee a game, but it felt like, I don't know. It felt like that was like the just outcome.
That's fair. It's also just I'm always a big believer in don't put yourself in a position where you need the rest to bail you out to keep your season alive or keep a game alive. I'm never in favor of that. What were some of the goal line calls by Michigan? Like, were you like even in the moment? Yes. It's like, what are you doing? Like the Philly special call, which Harbaugh took ownership of like they did not even like. We learned how to end that call. That we'll never see that call again, Matt Green, because all you have to do is stand your ground. If you just don't move, it's over. Like there's no path to you converting any of that. It was wild to just.
I think Harbaugh. Sorry, I think Harbaugh deserves a lot of blame for this one, honestly, because that just made no sense. The way you drove down the field on that first play, like so easily, and you have 4th and goal from it was from the 2, right? I think it was from the 2.
Yeah.
Like you have 4th and goal from the 2, the Joe Moore award-winning offensive line. Like you're built on your running game, your physicality. Like if there's an advantage you have over TCU, it should be just the strength, the power, the offensive line, like all of that. So that's like a gut check moment. Like, we're going to test their manhood. We're going to run it at them. Let's make them stop us. Worst case scenario, they got to drive 99 yards on us and they got the ball at the 1. But to run this Philly special, it's like, well, hold on. Like that, you're like pulling on a trick play on the first drive of the game. That doesn't like send a message to your team that you believe in like us like just kind of dominating their will or whatever. And it just didn't make any sense at all. Like for what Michigan's identity is, like how are you not just gonna try to bust it right up the gut? Honestly, like just test their manhood, like because that's who you are as Michigan. Like that's what's gotten you to this point. It was so strange to me that you decide to bust out a trick play and that's it. It's obviously hindsight when it doesn't work, but the call in general just didn't make sense to me.
No, a lot of stuff here did not make sense to me. I didn't actually, what's funny with the stuff with the timeout calls late. Remember when like people were losing their minds? You have Jim Harbaugh, his dad, or Jack Harbaugh mouthing, "Jim, what are you doing?" when the camera panned to him. I understood what he was doing there. Where I think sometimes coaches burn like it was so close where I was like, he's going to do it once they get the first down. And it's like from then on out, he's like, all right, we're giving us 3 straight. I'm going to burn 3 timeouts consecutively really quick. But he wasn't banking on his defense getting a stop on the first set of downs for TCU. And then was going to do until he absolutely had to get like maybe a turnover happens and we have all 3 timeouts. I didn't hate that as much because I was like, I think he looks at it too, where he just wants to make sure he has the ball last and like minimize his possessions. Because at that point in the game, they were just going back and forth anyway. Where he was like, we just got to shorten this game. And I don't know. I didn't like in the moment. I know people were freaking out about it. Like, why are you not calling timeout? What are you doing? I think he was just waiting to get back to that first down. And he was hoping it was going to happen a little bit sooner. And then he could just literally just go 1, 2, 3 back to back to back and only burn a little bit and still have roughly the same amount of time. I didn't hate it.
No, I didn't hate it either. That's the ultimate hindsight thing, just because you can't create more seconds in the game. So like you can stop the clock now or you can stop the clock later, but you can only stop it like a certain number of times and you're obviously trying to get the most out of each timeout. So I don't know, that sort of situation I can see where he was coming from there.
Your favorite moment in the game was what?
Oh, favorite moment in this game? I guess I don't know, the pick sixes early. Like I don't even know. This game just went back and forth. I don't know if I can pick. Do you have one off the top of your head?
The Quentin Johnson 70-yard touchdown run reception over the middle, like where he is on the sideline. It looks like he just makes one dude miss, and then there's just no Michigan player, and you're like, oh, he's just gonna score. That was like one of those where that's not his game. Like he's not a yak guy. And he's just the Alshon Jeffrey, go up and get it. Like he's the ultimate contested catch guy. And just what he did where I was like, oh, wow, this game has everything. I think
that's true because Michigan, it felt like they just had all the momentum at that point in the game too. And like that was that on third down, like third and short, like just a little like right across the middle. And like maybe you get the first down. And it's like, no, he takes it 70, whatever to the house. Like that was a backbreaker for sure. It felt like every time Michigan felt like they were gonna take control of the game, TCU just came right back. Like it was wild. It's crazy too when I heard after the fact that there was no lead changes this whole game. Like it was crazy, but it was like TCU just barely stayed ahead the whole way.
Well, let's move forward as we come to a close here on the CFP here, Matt Graham. So we got TCU. We got Georgia now in the final. I want to ask this question. It's the biggest discrepancy that I could find in a national title here in college football. 13.5 was the opening line here. I wonder if it balloons even more in the days leading up to it. I think this is a disaster for the college football playoff. Like, I think this is one of those where, you know what they did? They overplayed their hand here, Matt Green. They wanted, because I am not convinced, I should say this, I am convinced they did not want to do Michigan, Ohio State again in the semifinal, because they're like, it just happened. We want an opportunity where it's like potentially 2 Big Ten teams, and we save that kind of like Duke and UNC in the tournament from this year in March Madness, where like they wanted to save it as a possibility, and they wanted to ensure that at least like, hey, we have an opportunity of 2 big teams in this one. Instead, they messed up here. Because now you have 0 Big Ten teams in the final, and you get the one that you did not want at all. And they avoided, because Georgia got a raw deal here. I think I said to you, where I was like, I think Georgia getting Ohio State and Michigan getting TCU is not fair. Like, TCU is a worse football team than Ohio State. And there is, I didn't like that for Georgia. They've been the best team all year. They should have gotten, like last year with Cincinnati, I don't, like, Bama got Cincinnati, and I'm saying, like, I think Georgia should have gotten that same I don't want to say a bye. I'm going to piss off some of these TCU fans of this episode. But we all know Georgia's not losing to TCU in a semifinal game to open things up. And then you get Georgia versus the winner of a rematch.
I don't know that.
We do. And Kirby Smart's lost how many games against the Big 12 to this point?
Probably 0, I would guess.
It's 0.
It's a rematch of the 2016 Liberty Bowl, though, we got in the national championship.
Numbers don't lie. This is one of those where, like, I don't know if it goes Georgia Hawaii levels. Probably not that bad from the Sugar Bowl, but this is the ratings are going to be horrific for this one. It's definitely going to be one of the least watched college football playoffs in a long time. You look at the spread.
Do you care about ratings?
I don't, but well, that's why I'm asking.
I don't care about ratings.
The CFP committee. I care about good games.
Network executives can care about ratings.
I care about the best title game possible. And I feel weird because I'm like, we sacrifice basically the national championship for the best semifinal weekend of all time. So I guess I'd rather have 2 good games than 1 bad game. I don't know, because I don't want to watch it, Matt Green. Like, I'm so bummed that this is the final, because it's going to be like 49-21.
You also thought Michigan was going to blast TCU, though. So it's like...
Hold on, no, I didn't. I said it would be close.
I mean, you didn't think... I mean, you picked them... I don't think you said it was going to be very close.
I said Michigan would win and barely cover.
I'm not going to call you on that because I can't remember exactly what you said, but I
you know what I think? I think at the end you were pushing me the other way. I was just saying, like, TCU just feels like a winner over
regardless, the vast majority of people thought Michigan was going to blow out TCU. Like, that was the popular opinion. Like, most people didn't think it was going to be close. So I think this proved, like, I want to know, what do people want the playoff to be? Like, when it's decided on the field with the wrong winner, people get mad. When it's not the right team, like what do we want? We want, like, I think this proved once again that the BCS was not the right format. Like, this is the 7th time in 9 years now that a 3 or a 4 has gotten to the national championship. So clearly the BCS wasn't getting it right every year. I think it's safe to say. I think it was worth going to 4 teams, but now we're having new blood. We had Cincinnati and Michigan for the first time last year. We have TCU for the first time this year. TCU's in the national championship. Isn't that what everyone was complaining about? It was Clemson, Alabama every year. Like, that's what we were now we're complaining that TCU is in the national championship. Like, I just hate that. This was the best semifinal weekend, obviously, by far. Like, not even close. We've never gotten 2 good games in the same year. And we just overreacted to this unprecedented dominance of Alabama and Clemson for like a 5-year period. Like, obviously, Alabama was dominant for like a decade, but there's this 5-year period or so where it's just Alabama and Clemson, and we got tired of that. But it's like any format that exists, Alabama and Clemson were going to be the best in 2015 and 2016 and 2018, like 2019. Like, that's just what happens. They are the best. So we totally overreacted to these few years because it was the first years the playoff existed. and thought, well, I guess the 4-team playoff is not a fair format. Like you're seeing now, it's like there's good teams, you're seeing different teams, and now we're finding a way to say something's wrong with this. Like I think this is what everyone wants. Like the 1 and the 4 is a great game, and 3 beats 2. So clearly you decided something on the field instead of just voting on it. Like, and TCU, they've been counted out time and time again. But you know what? We don't vote on it as much anymore. We do still kind of vote on it, but at least there's a margin for error. You used to be voting on the top 2. Now you're voting on the top 4. Like the college football regular season just means so much. Like the first 10 seed that makes a run in the college football playoff and wins the national championship, it's not going to be damn Wisconsin or Oklahoma State. It's going to be the year that Ohio State loses 3 games, but they're still ranked 11th or 12th, or Alabama loses 3 games, but they still get in the playoff, and we all know how talented their roster is. Like I don't know. I obviously went on a whole rant. I feel like we just overreacted with the 12-team playoff. College football's regular season is just so amazing. Like there's plenty of teams that had an opportunity to take care of business and get in this 4-team playoff. Like Ohio State is the one team. I mean, obviously TCU didn't win their conference either, but they went undefeated in the regular season. Like there's no teams that can really sit at home and be like, we were cheated this year. You know, there's no UCF. Like Tennessee had a great season, but with how things shook out, no Tennessee fan is sitting at home like, because of this format, we got cheated. You know, Alabama fans probably are, but Alabama fans are just the most illogical fans that exist. So I can't. They're gonna figure out a way to spin it however it benefits them every time. So I don't know how they can be such a salty fan base with like 6 national championships in a decade, but somehow they still are. But I don't know, like Alabama doesn't have a legitimate real gripe to be in the playoff this year. You know, there's no team sitting out there that, like, we were struggling to get 4 what we kind of traditionally think of as like deserving playoff contenders this year. And we go to 12, we're going to start to get 2-3 lost teams that lost to the 2-3 best teams they played. Like Penn State, is Penn State a playoff team? Like this Penn State team, are they a team that deserves a shot to win a national championship? Like you played 2 top 5 teams this year, and you played one of them tough. You got blasted by the other. It's like, oh, that's what it is. Like we had an opportunities to play good teams and we lost. Like, you know, I don't know. There's other teams that have a better gripe, like with maybe 1 or 2 losses that played a tougher schedule than someone else. But I don't know. On the whole, I felt like this just showed that like college football, this format, it's like it was fine. Like we didn't need to mess with it. I think it's just, you know, the 12 team, I'm sure it'll be fun, but I think is having a better postseason, quote unquote, more, I guess having a more exciting postseason, is that worth, you know, devaluing some of those October and November Saturdays? I don't necessarily think so.
How many open seats do you think they're going to be in this national title game?
I think Georgia. Oh, that's a good point. I mean, I don't know how big TCU's fan base is, but you know, this is a once in a lifetime thing. I think TCU fans are going to show up. You think You think this is going to be empty seats in this one?
I think there will be. Yeah.
Maybe I should
prices
check
went bad. I think Darren Ravel, who I unfortunately have to cite here, I think he was monitoring the ticket market, and when TCU won, it went from like 1,200 to 800 or something for the highest ticket.
Yeah, I mean, TCU definitely doesn't have as big of a fan base as Michigan has or Ohio
State
has.
Private school.
But I mean, hey, they earned it, and a lot of it's geography.
And again, I'm not saying they did not earn it.
You got a team from Texas and Georgia playing in Southern California. That's not necessarily ideal. But
and if you're a Georgia fan,
it is what it is.
It's not like Alabama last year. We were like, I don't know how this will go. Like, look, there's a rivalry there already. You want to be there in the building when they finally get the Saban monkey off their back. This one's different. Like, if you're a Georgia fan, especially the ones who went last year, I think the majority are going to go ahead and check out of this one, right? Not going to break the bank for this one.
Man,
broke the bank for Ohio State.
They waited 41 years, man. You're not going to get satisfied with just one title.
Well,
you
what
want
I'm
to see them
saying
do
is,
it again.
I don't know, because you don't need to be there. You know you've won. Like, it's over. I think a lot of Georgia fans woke up today already like, we've won, season over. That was our national title. Like, I don't think there's going to be the impetus for them to fly to Southern California to go to this game. I don't, because I think they think they're going to win. They're going to look at the spread and they're going to look at this and be like, Kirby's not losing to TCU in the national championship game. Like, I don't have to be in the building for when Georgia beats TCU for the national title. I will say
it's a national championship, man.
It feels weird though coming out of my mouth. All I'm saying is you're not going to spend $2,000 or in travel and deal with the airline stuff that we're already dealing with, like all the bags and all the crazy stuff that we're seeing in airlines. Like, I don't think I would want to. You could go to the Atlanta one because they were already all local. You can go to the Peach Bowl. It's a totally different thing to go to Southern California all the way across the country.
No, the Georgia fans' just starvation was definitely impacting a lot of the ticket prices in recent years. The Alabama game, the Notre Dame game in recent years, like, and it even like the Georgia Tennessee game this year, like that's more the Tennessee fan starvation, right? It's like they're the ones that are like, we're playing in a huge game, I am going to be there, you know, and it's like that sort of thing. Like now Georgia fans, it's like, no, now we're just like a regular good team, and maybe you're not gonna, you know, mortgage your house to be present when they finally win the big one. But I think
Kirby's gonna have to come out again next week and be like, hey, we've noticed that a lot of Georgia fans haven't picked up their tickets for Southern California. We need y'all there because we need the crowd noise to beat TCU, kind of like Tennessee, where it's like, hey, we need y'all to step up and travel for this game. I need you to drop $3,000 to go watch Georgia beat TCU 49-14. I need you to do it.
I don't know why you continue to disrespect. We'll get into TCU, but this is one thing I got, just one teaser for our podcast later in the week. There have been, since the BCS era, there's been 4 double-digit favorites in the national title game. Those teams are 2-2 in those games. So a lot of people thought that Miami was going to blast Ohio State back in 2002. You know, and
I think it was a little bit different in the talent pool. I think it might be a little bit different.
I think Miami had a lot more talent than Ohio State in 2002, and you know, things happen. So, you know,
you're just wanting to make this more interesting. You really
no, it's the national championship, and TCU just beat Michigan, who everyone thought was the second best team in the country. Like they just had like 600 total yards on them. I might be selling them short, honestly. What were the final numbers in there? They only had they had 488. Yeah, they had 263 on the ground. Like they were torching Michigan.
Yeah,
I'm not. When is Max Duggan going to get NFL hype? Like, why is Anthony Richardson and Will Levis getting first round hype, and we don't talk about Max Duggan? Like, what does this guy got to do? Like, he's a legit dual threat. Like, what Heisman runner up? Like, what we got to do to put some respect on Max Duggan's name?
Speaking of putting respect on some quarterback names.
You disagree?
Yeah, he's not an NFL quarterback. No.
He's Hendon Hooker is better.
I don't think Hendon, Stetson, or Max Duggan are quarterbacks you build around.
Is Anthony Richardson like Will Levis?
I think best case scenario of Will Levis and Anthony Richardson, yes, just from physical tools alone. But do I think they're going to work out? No, those are 2 different questions. Like they have the tools to be a cornerstone for 15 years. But do I think they work out? I think you've already seen the finished product of the first 3. Like we know where they are. Stetson and Hendon are both 25 years old. Like
when does Anthony Richardson get better? Like this guy's been in college for like 3 years, 4 years. Like
he's still like 21, right?
Like when is this guy supposed to get better?
I don't know. We'll see. I'm not betting on it. What I'm saying is still the physical stuff is there. It's just different. NFL evaluators look at stuff differently.
Josh Allen, he's going to make a lot of NFL teams make a lot of bad decisions in the future because they're like, well, you know, his stats at Wyoming weren't even good, and now he's like the best quarterback in the NFL. Like, that's not going to happen. It's not going to happen very often.
No. Quickly, we'll end on this because we'll get more and more into our TCU Georgia preview on, I guess, Sunday show because it will be we still have 2 pods before that on Monday Night Football next week. How are they going to do that? Is there a Monday Night Football game next week or no?
No, because it's once we get into January, that's the end of the NFL season. This is week 17 coming up, right?
No.
Or final week. I think the final week of the season, they never have Monday Night Football.
Okay, that's what it is. I was going to say, because next week is the final week, yeah. Matt Green, Joe Milton fell. I won't dwell too much on this for Tennessee, Clemson, but Tennessee beats down Clemson. Joe Milton I would say there's been some like revisionist history about how this game went. And I don't know if you watched the whole game from start to finish. But
I think I did basically watch this game from start to finish.
100 plays for Clemson in this one. Not a lot to show for it. BT Potter missed a billion kicks here early. Clemson, their offense just clunky. They do a lot of motion. One of the things that were down was Agata and Cole Turner are like their bread and butter. And it's just, there's no Mike Williams. There's no T. Higgins. They don't really have those guys anymore. And it's like, I don't care what Cade Klubnik's doing. I think Tim Banks did an unbelievable job calling this game, sending so much pressure at the freshmen. No Jeremy Banks. It didn't matter. Like Tennessee's front four and offensive line just beat the crap out of Clemson. And I think this game was more important than I think maybe the average fan are thinking, because Clemson and Tennessee are huge recruiting rivals. Like they're right next to each other. They recruit the same kind of players in the Carolinas, in Tennessee, and you get the best you can out of Georgia and Florida and Alabama a little bit. But by and large, you're recruiting the same guys. And beating Clemson, who you are going up against, and seeing this offense, I think this was a huge indictment on that, where Squirrel White comes in, great over the top. Clemson had no answers for them. Joe Milton finishes the season with no picks. The guy has not thrown a pick since 2021, and 10 TDs, no interceptions. I think what people are going to miss from this one, and I think Joe was fine. He got MVP. I don't think he probably should have gotten it. He had some pretty throws. He had some bangers, but like, I think my notes are on the room, but I think it was 5 or 6 3-and-outs in this game from Tennessee. And he missed some easy ones. He's throwing low. He's still throwing 100 miles an hour on some gimmies on third down. He took some really bad sacks in this game that he's got to clean up. He started doing some RPO stuff and keeping the ball a little bit in the second half, but not the runner that Hendon Hooker was, and he has to start using his size next year and do all that. But, like, I came away like he's right there in the middle. Like, I don't know. I'm still not 100% sold. I think he was fine, but I think the people who are like, oh, solidified, it's done deal. I'm like, no, there were a lot of, like, most offenses would have taken advantage of what Tennessee was giving them. The 100 plays, being in Tennessee territory a bunch, the quick 3-and-outs from Tennessee by and large happened multiple times where it just could not. And a lot of other teams probably would have taken advantage of this better. But I don't know. I think there was good and bad, but I think Tennessee finishing with 11 is huge. Great moment for Heupel, and Hooker and Joe Milton's relationship is awesome. And everybody wants Joe to succeed, and he had the bombs in this one. He showed better touch on his deep ball this time. But I'm still like, we'll wait and see. I'm not 1,000%. I don't think he was just it was not the same game as what we've seen from Hendon Hooker. And maybe by next year, in a full spring and summer, he's finally there and everything has come together. But I think he's better than what we've seen from a year ago, but I don't know. I think Tennessee fans who are not expecting at least a slight drop-off from Hooker, I think a big drop-off from Hooker is, I don't know, might be in La Land, because Hendon Hooker was special, and I think it's going to be tough for Joe. But by and large, great defensive stand. Tim Banks did a lot of awesome stuff, and the pressure from this Tennessee front four is big time. I don't know. What were your did you have any strong takeaways from this one?
What I heard was Joe Milton for Heisman.
Yeah.
That's what I'm picking up. I think Joe Milton is 100% going to have Heisman hype going into
Tennessee. I think might start in the top 3 in the preseason rankings next year. I think they might start
top 3.
Yeah.
I don't know about that. I think they'll be preseason top 10, but top 3, I don't know.
Top 3 to 5. This offense was number 1. I think they finished 11-2. The preseason hype for this Tennessee team is going to be through the roof.
Yeah, but you got to think it's going to be Georgia, Alabama, and USC, and
are you sure?
And Ohio
Jaden
State,
Milroe and Carson
Michigan.
Beck are both going to be preseason ahead of Tennessee? Are we sure?
I would bet my life that Georgia will be ranked higher than Tennessee in the preseason. Like, Georgia's a young team this year.
Well, I'm saying Bama.
Alabama, I mean, I don't know if it'll be correct that they'll be ranked ahead of them in preseason, but I mean, people just rank Alabama high.
I just think Tennessee is going to, I'll put it this way. I think they'll be top 5. I'd be floored if they are not a preseason top 5 team.
Floored if they're not top 5?
Yes.
So if they're number 6, you're gonna lose your mind.
I'm not gonna. No. I'm saying it would really, really blow my mind if they're not in the top 5. I'm not saying it's going to be earned and they're going to be a top 5 team, but like, look, they weren't ranked to start this year, which was a joke.
I think that's true. I was really surprised that they were ranked, and I was surprised how many people were kind of talking about South Carolina being a dark horse instead of Tennessee. But this is kind of what I said to you. Like,
Speaking
kind
of, how did that end for them?
Oh man, South Carolina Gamecocks looked good on Friday, but Notre Dame, that was a wild game. There were some great games this week, honestly. You got that one correct. Oh yeah, go back to our pick'em.
Well, before we get into the pick'em, what were your Tennessee thoughts? And we'll put a bow on it.
My Tennessee thoughts. It was kind of like I said for the Baylor. I brought up the Georgia Baylor game back in 2019 in the Sugar Bowl. Like, when you have that many guys opt out and then you do win and you win convincingly like they did against Clemson, it's like you actually did learn something about what Tennessee. Like, if Tennessee lost this game, it was easy to say, like, whatever, this didn't represent us in any way. So for the fact that you won a game that was like that, and I think that the biggest thing I took away, like, this is obviously a big win for Tennessee for sure, but I think more than anything, this was a bad loss for Clemson. Like, to go to Cade Klubnik like you did, and it's like, DJU, he's out of here. Like, this isn't some sort of competition that's going to carry into 2023. Like, it's done. And, like, Klubnik, like, Tennessee, their defense has not been, particularly great this season. And obviously they were down a couple of players in the bowl game. So Cade Klubnik, I came away very unimpressed by his performance, and not disrespecting Tennessee's defense in any way, but they've given up some points this year, and obviously they played well in this game, but I think you got to be
hit Klubnik a bunch.
I think you got to be worried
him
though.
Down.
If you're a Clemson fan going into next year, like, is Klubnik really the guy that's going to take us from the Cade McNamara to the JJ McCarthy kind of level that they're trying to do, like Michigan kind of did? Like, they've decided DJU wasn't good enough. Like, is Klubnik better? Like, I don't know. Like, he reminded me a lot of, like, 2019 to 2021 Bo Nix. Like, he was running for his life. Like, maybe a lot of that's on Clemson's offensive line, but it felt like at times it was like phantom pressure. Like, he was leaving the pocket before he even needed to. Like, I don't know. He's really athletic, but I don't know. I need to see more from Klubnik before I think of Clemson as a legit, like, contender to win it all next year.
I would agree. How do we do in our bowl pick'em as we wrap up here tonight, Matt Green?
So let's see. We had 12 games on this slate. You took the overall this time. You went 8-4 on this slate. I went 7-5. However, against the spread, I went 6-6, and you went 5-7. So let's see. We both picked Washington. So yeah, we had a few disagreements in there. We were both wrong about UCLA. I think that's the only one that we both got wrong all the way across the board, because I did take TCU against the spread, and we obviously both missed Georgia against the spread. But yeah, I missed Clemson. I missed Kentucky. You got Iowa and Tennessee there. Both went Alabama. I disagreed with how the Alabama game was going to go. I thought Kansas State was going to give them a game, and they did for a couple quarters there. But yeah, Alabama just, when the playmakers actually show up, because if you think about it, this was the third Sugar Bowl under Nick Saban that's been like a consolation game that didn't matter. Like, if you go back to 2009 versus Utah, or 2008 versus Utah, 2000, I want to say 13 versus Oklahoma, and then this one, it's like they lost those other two games. So I thought Kansas State, this was going to be their Super Bowl, but the fact that Bryce Young, Will Anderson played and everything in this one, Alabama was too much. So they won going away, but yeah, it was an exciting week. It was definitely the best slate of games we had this whole bowl season. Just that Thursday, Friday, Saturday. It was good stuff.
Man.
Oh shoot, are we gonna make our picks for these next? We got like 4 more games. Let's jump into it. Let's jump into it real quick.
We're doing like a minute on these.
Yeah, let's do it. So today, you're listening to this. We got all 4 of these games are today on the 2nd. If you're listening to this on Monday. ReliaQuest Bowl, formerly the Outback Bowl. We got Mississippi State and Illinois. Mississippi State is a 3-point favorite in this one.
Yeah, give me Mississippi State. They're going to score enough.
I feel like are you making the sentimental pick or for Mike Leach?
I think it's both. I think they're just going to score enough. This Illinois offense can't. I'm not a believer in the Illinois offense. Chase Brown opted out for this one, didn't he?
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, I don't think he's playing. Let me see.
I feel
yes, he opted out.
I still worry about Illinois just being too physical, but I was kind of going the sentimental route. I've liked Illinois this year, as far as just what knowing what their identity is. But we got a pirate ship in the end zone in this stadium. Mike Leach, he'll be looking out for the Mississippi State Bulldogs in this one. So give me Mississippi State as well. The Goodyear Cotton Bowl Classic, one of our 2 New Year's 6 games on the slate. Tulane and USC. USC just a 2-point favorite in this one. Am I missing something on this line?
Yeah, I guess a lot of respect for Tulane. Good team. Have everything to play for. Obviously not.
They got the geography advantage, I guess.
Yeah. But Caleb Williams is playing in this one.
Yeah.
I don't see it. I think USC wins and covers. I don't see that.
Yeah, I'm going to have to agree with you on that one. The Cheez-It Bowl. Also, hold on, before I get into the Cheez-It Bowl, all the bowl games need to learn from the Duke's Mayo Bowl. There is not a better marketed bowl than the Duke's Mayo Bowl in the entire bowl season, honestly. They're talking about the mayonnaise for legit 4 quarters. They're dipping it in different things. They've figured out how to keep their product relevant for the entire football game. So the other companies need to take a note from the Duke's Mayo Bowl. But going to the Cheez-It Citrus Bowl, I thought this was the Cheez-It Bowl, but it's not the Cheez-It Bowl. It's the Cheez-It Citrus Bowl in Orlando. We got LSU and Purdue in this one. LSU is a 15-point favorite in this one. And I was just super surprised by this line. I know Purdue's got some, influx with their program and everything, but I don't know. I just don't see LSU beating them by more than 2 touchdowns. I'm going to take LSU to win, but give me Purdue against the spread.
No, LSU wins and covers. People forget, they did all kinds of great offensive stuff against Georgia in the SEC championship game. They put up a bunch of yards and points. And Jane Daniels looks like he's the guy in LSU. And obviously the turnover, Ryan Walters coming in here. No.
That was Nussmeier doing everything against Georgia.
Well, I just think both have been good. And I think LSU's turned the corner. I think because this will give them 10 wins, right? If they win this. They're 9-4.
I think that's right, yeah.
Yeah, give me LSU to win and cover.
Nussmeier definitely hitting the portal after this one. That one performance against Georgia, if Jane Daniels is the guy next year, Nussmeier, he could probably start somewhere.
Yeah.
The last one on our slate, the Rose Bowl. We got Penn State and Utah in this one, and it's so weird to see the 3rd best team in the Big Ten with the Rose Bowl appearance. But here we are, the traditional Pac-12 Big Ten game. Utah's a 1-point favorite in this one, and I just really don't see any way that Penn State beats Utah, honestly. Utah's just better all around, honestly.
I think Utah and Penn State play a close game because this is Sean Clifford's swan song, right? He's playing in this one.
Is he?
Clifford's playing.
I don't know why. I don't know what he would be opting out for. I think he's got a lot more to prove.
No, I think this is going to be close. I think this is going to be a back and forth game. I think Utah's done a lot, obviously beating USC in the title game, motion tie, but we've seen the low of lows against Florida to open the year. We've seen some questionable games from Utah, some blips. I'm going to switch things up. I think Penn State wins this. I think Penn State wins in a close game. I think this is a good goodbye moment for Sean Clifford in this group.
Yeah, last time Penn State made the Rose Bowl, one of the greatest
USC,
games.
Right?
Yeah, one of the greatest games I've ever seen. That USC Penn State one.
Saquon, all over the place.
But yeah, so that's where we are. Oh, and overall, I am 24-14, 1 game behind you overall. You're 25-13. However, I got a nice little advantage against the spread, 21-16-1, and you were 17-20-1 against the spread. So, Basically, same thing that was happening in the regular season. I got that lead on you against the spread, and you just had that tiny little lead overall on me. But to each their own. I'm winning the people money. You're getting those winners and losers. So, both have value.
There you go. Well, that's all I've got, Matt Green. Congratulations.
I will not let you discount the TCU Horned Frogs like this. I'm going to respect the opponent. And I'm going to dig into the tape and see how Georgia matches up against TCU. Without Darnell Washington, potentially without like two.
Is Darnell for sure done?
I don't know if he's for sure done. He was in a boot and had crutches on the sideline during the game.
Been there, bro.
Could be just a precautionary thing, but yeah. And even Ladd McConkey, he was limping on that 2-point conversion that they scored in the fourth quarter. So even he's not 100%. So.
Warren McClendon, the Georgia fans, I don't know.
Warren McClendon, the starting right tackle, didn't play at all in this one. Mm-hmm. So obviously, Amarius Mims, 5-star, big-time sophomore, was the one that came in for him. But he's played a lot all year. But TCU.
If Georgia loses to TCU, I don't whatever goodwill Kirby's bought to this point. I think it flips. Georgia fans, it's a meltdown situation.
If TCU wins, they win the national championship. They're obviously a good team.
No, that would hurt and sting so much because Bama fans will rub it into Georgia fans' faces forever. There are so many fan bases that are you got all the way there and you had an opportunity to go back to back and then you lost to TCU.
And anyone that says that is just dumb, honestly.
Okay, but Matt Green, you're going to hate it.
But first of all, I'm sure I'll hate it. But the fans, whose opinion I'm not worried about? The people who are talking shit, the fans who talk shit to the teams that have better seasons than them. The ones who sit at home during the SEC championship and then clown the team that lost the SEC championship. It's you didn't get to the SEC championship. I don't know, the years where SEC fans are trolling Alabama for getting blown out by Clemson in the national championship. It's you're not here. You're not in the national championship. So those fans, I'm not worried about their opinions at all because those are the worst opinions out there. So if TCU wins the national championship, they're the best team in college football, and this is a David and Goliath story that's one of the biggest upsets in college football history, in championship history for sure. So it's if TCU wins, they're a great team, and I think Georgia, I will say, I think the Ohio State game showed just myself personally, because you don't really know how you feel about a game until it starts. This game was high pressure or whatever. But it compared nothing compared to every other big game under Kirby Smart, and even going back to Mark Richt, or it's just if we don't win this is 33 years since the national championship. We don't win this, it's now 38 years till a national championship. We don't win this, it's now 40 years since a national championship. It's Georgia just won a national championship. We really are playing with house money. We actually said that in the house watching the game on Saturday. It's we weren't supposed to be here this year. We lost 15 guys to the draft. We weren't the preseason favorite to win the national championship. This season was so much better. We were so much more dominant than we thought we were going to be. So it's if you don't win the national championship, we got a damn good shot to win it again next year. So I think Georgia fans are just that national championship bought a lot of just rational thinking for a few years, at least a couple years. You don't want to wait too long because you want to obviously be back at the top of the mountaintop. But Georgia's lost what now? Is it 3 games the last 3 seasons or so? So it's things are obviously going in the right direction. And if they don't win the national championship, you tip your cap to TCU. I don't feel like it's going to be some meltdown of a situation. But the opportunity to be the third team the last 50 years to go back to back, that's obviously a rarefied air, and I hope Kirby Smart can get it done.
It'll be a meltdown. I love your level-headedness, Matt Green, but it's a meltdown situation if you drop the Horned Frog game. I'm just going to go ahead and tell you. It's a meltdown on Georgia Twitter. It's a meltdown forever, because
I don't
Twitter
think
will be
so.
an unbearable place for any Georgia fan, because it's like LOL TCU, like, will be the immediate thing. Didn't they lose to Kansas State in the Big 12 title game? You lost to a bunch of 3 and 4 stars at TCU, first year coach Sonny Dykes. Like, the jokes would never stop.
It will
Bama
not
never
be
did
a
it.
meltdown. Like, when it will be equivalent to Justin Fields, Jake Fromm conversation. Like that, Georgia fans, the vast majority of Georgia fans will argue till they're red in the face, till they're blue in the face about the right decision was made with Jake Fromm, and just no other coach anywhere would have made a different decision because of what Jake Fromm had done. But I'm not going to rehash that. So all of the Twitter activity, like, from Georgia fans would just be defending their team till they're red in the face. It's not going to be, I just don't think it's going to be this, like, what are you going to say? Like, Kirby he's not the right guy for the job. Like, what are you going to say? It's like, damn, I thought we were going to go back to back. Oh, well, maybe let's try to win it all in 2023. Like, I really think you're questioning, you're underselling how rational that national championship has made Georgia fans. I think we got the Atlanta Braves World Series too. We don't feel cursed as a people anymore. We're a little more level-headed. Like, I was even considering inviting my friend over as a Florida fan to watch the game, but he just had a newborn baby. Congrats to him. So he can't leave the house. But
Is that a
I was
rule?
like, well, I mean, he just has a newborn baby, so they're just taking care of it around the clock.
It's a baby. What are you doing?
I mean, I'm sure the mother is not 100% after having a baby, so the dad's got to do some extra heavy lifting. But off on a tangent there, but it's just not the same voodoo. Like, I would not allow a Florida fan. You're a fan of a team that's not even playing. It's just like, I don't want your energy around this Georgia game. We need Georgia fans only in this house. Like, focus on the game. Like, we're all rowing in the same direction, So at this point, I'm like, no, it's whoever wants to come, let's do it. We won a championship. Like, no big deal. We're playing with house money.
All right, Matt Green. Well, that's all I've got. Fun pod, and exciting weekend of college football, and we got one more ahead, and then it's a bunch of off-season stuff that we gotta parse through here. But another fun full ride, if you will, here, Matt Green, and I will talk to you very soon.
Yes, sir.